Good morning. Today we bring you a story that has not only dominated headlines, but has also sparked conversations in homes, offices, and communities across the country. For nearly a year, the nation has been transfixed by a case that seems almost too shocking to be real. A crime that shattered the sense of safety in one of America's busiest cities and left millions searching for answers. It was a frigid December morning in 2024 when Brian Thompson, the well-known CEO of UnitedHealth Group, was gunned down in broad daylight just steps from a Manhattan hotel. The city, already bustling with holiday activity, was brought to a standstill as news of the shooting spread. The audacity of the attack, so public, so brazen, sent shockwaves far beyond New York. The NYPD launched one of its largest investigations in recent memory, with detectives working around the clock and the public demanding answers. Investigators quickly gathered security footage from nearby businesses and spoke to dozens of witnesses, piecing together the suspect's movements in the chaotic aftermath. Within hours, they had identified a person of interest, setting off a chain of events that would grip the nation. What followed was a dramatic 5-day manhunt that played out on television screens and social media feeds everywhere. Police combed city streets, while reporters camped outside precincts, updating a riveted public on every new development. The search finally ended hundreds of miles away in Altoona, Pennsylvania. There, in the unlikeliest of places, a McDonald's restaurant, Luigi Mangione was quietly taken into custody, bringing a sense of relief, but also raising new questions. With Mangione behind bars, the focus shifted from the streets to the courtroom. The legal process began, with prosecutors and defense attorneys preparing for what promised to be a high-profile trial, watched by millions. Mangione now faces a daunting list of state and federal charges, some of which carry the possibility of the death penalty. The stakes could not be higher, both for the accused and for the justice system itself. Through his attorneys, Mangione has pleaded not guilty, setting the stage for a legal showdown that will test the limits of the law and the patience of a nation eager for closure. But this case is about more than just guilt or innocence. It's a complex legal drama unfolding under the relentless gaze of the public and the media, a story of tragedy, justice, and the search for truth in the face of overwhelming scrutiny. Who is Luigi Mangione? This question has been on everyone's mind since his shocking arrest. At 27, he was a quiet college graduate with a degree in engineering, working in software. Hardly the profile of a suspected killer. Luigi was known for his dedication to his work and his unassuming nature. He was the kind of person who blended into the background, never drawing much attention to himself. Friends and colleagues were stunned by his arrest, and his background has been intensely scrutinized. Many who knew him are struggling to reconcile the person they thought they knew with the accusations he now faces. The shockwaves of his arrest have rippled through his community, leaving many in disbelief. Investigators have searched for clues in his digital footprint and personal history, but answers remain elusive. They have combed through his emails, social media accounts, and personal files, looking for any hint of a motive or evidence that could explain the crime. Yet, the more they search, the more questions arise. Prosecutors claim Mangione harbored deep resentment toward the healthcare system, painting this as a motive for the crime. They argue that his frustrations and grievances with the system festered over time, leading to a tragic outcome. This theory is central to their case against him. They're examining his online activity and writings to support this theory. Every post, comment, and message is being scrutinized for any sign of anger or resentment that could back up their claims. The digital trail he left behind is now a crucial piece of the puzzle. The defense, meanwhile, insists Mangione is innocent and is fighting to protect his rights amid a media frenzy. They argue that the evidence is circumstantial and that Mangione is being unfairly targeted. His legal team is working tirelessly to build a case that will exonerate him. His lawyers challenge the prosecution's narrative at every turn. They are determined to poke holes in the prosecution's case and present an alternative explanation for the events in question. The courtroom battles are intense, with both sides fiercely advocating for their version of the truth. As the trial approaches, the true story of Luigi Mangione will be debated in court, not in the headlines. The legal proceedings will be the ultimate test of the evidence and arguments presented by both sides. The outcome remains uncertain, and the stakes are incredibly high. The public's understanding of Mangione is still being shaped by evidence, not speculation. As new information comes to light, perceptions may shift, and the narrative may evolve. Until then, the world watches and waits for the truth to emerge. This case became a national obsession for several reasons. Brian Thompson was more than a victim. He was the CEO of a healthcare giant, symbolizing a system many Americans find frustrating. The daylight killing in Manhattan shattered assumptions about safety and targeted violence. The story dominated headlines and social media, uniting the country in shock and debate. The alleged motive, anger at the healthcare system, struck a nerve, turning the case into a flashpoint for broader social issues. The dramatic manhunt, complete with surveillance images and a small-town arrest, played out like a thriller. The combination of a powerful victim, relatable motive, and cinematic chase ensured the nation's attention. Now, all eyes are on the courtroom, where the next chapter will unfold. The outcome will resonate far beyond the individuals involved. Before a trial begins, crucial steps must be taken, starting with the pre-trial hearing. This is where the judge, prosecutors, and defense attorneys set the ground rules for the trial. There's no jury, just the judge, weighing what evidence will be allowed. Not all evidence collected by police is automatically admissible. Strict rules protect the rights of the accused. If evidence was gathered illegally, the judge can suppress it, keeping it from the jury. These hearings can dramatically shape the trial's outcome. For example, excluding key evidence could weaken the prosecution's case. Over the next week, Judge Gregory Caro will hear arguments about what evidence should be included or excluded. The prosecution will defend their methods. The defense will challenge them. What happens in this phase could determine the fate of the entire case. The first major pretrial step is the MAP hearing, focused on physical evidence. The judge must decide if police lawfully seized items, like those found in Mangione's backpack at his arrest. The Constitution protects against unreasonable searches. Police usually need a warrant or strong justification. The defense argues the backpack search violated Mangione's rights and wants the evidence excluded. The prosecution will call arresting officers to justify the search. The judge will scrutinize every step. Did police have legal grounds to stop and search Mangione? If the search is ruled illegal, key evidence could be thrown out, dealing a blow to the prosecution. If allowed, the defense faces a tougher challenge. The outcome of this hearing could reshape the entire trial. The stakes are high for both sides. The judge's ruling will set a critical precedent for what the jury will see. Next comes the Huntley hearing, which examines what Mangione said to police. The court must decide if his statements were voluntary and if he was properly informed of his Miranda rights. If police failed to read his rights or used coercion, those statements can be excluded. The defense will scrutinize the interrogation. Was Mangione pressured? Did he ask for a lawyer? Prosecutors will argue the process was fair and by the book. Officers will testify about the arrest and questioning. The judge's decision is pivotal. If Mangione's statements are excluded, the prosecution loses a key piece of evidence. If allowed, the defense must counter them in court. This hearing is about protecting constitutional rights and ensuring only fair evidence reaches the jury. The outcome could tip the balance of the entire trial. At the heart of the MAP hearing is a fierce and complex debate over the true nature of Mangione's writings, discovered inside his backpack after his arrest. These pages, filled with his thoughts and reflections, have become a central point of contention between the prosecution and the defense, raising questions about privacy, intent, and the power of words in a courtroom. Prosecutors insist on calling these writings a manifesto, arguing that the content reveals not just Mangione's state of mind, but also his motive and intent leading up to the alleged crime. They believe the writings are a window into his planning and purpose, and want the jury to see them as a roadmap to understanding his actions. The defense, however, pushes back forcefully. They argue that these are nothing more than private musings, personal thoughts that, while perhaps unusual or intense, are not evidence of criminal behavior. To them, introducing these writings risks turning the trial into a judgment of character rather than of facts. To protect Mangione's rights, the defense proposes a compromise. Let the jury see only the outside of the notebook, keeping its contents private and shielding the jury from potentially prejudicial material. Even the word manifesto is under scrutiny. The defense claims it's a loaded term, chosen by prosecutors to sway the jury's emotions and paint Mangione in a sinister light before the facts are fully considered. This legal battle highlights a fundamental tension in the justice system. Should emotionally charged writings, which may or may not reflect real intentions, be used as evidence to prove motive? Or does that risk unfairly prejudicing the jury against the accused? On one side, prosecutors argue that the jury deserves to know the full story, including what Mangione wrote in private. On the other, the defense is determined to prevent bias and ensure the trial remains focused on concrete evidence, not speculation or emotion. Ultimately, it will be up to Judge Caro to decide how much of Mangione's inner world the jury will be allowed to see and how much will remain hidden from view. The judge's decision on this issue could shape the entire narrative of the trial, influencing how the jury interprets the evidence and the defendant's state of mind. As the hearing unfolds, both sides know that this is a pivotal moment, one that could determine not just what the jury sees, but how they see the case itself. Pretrial hearings may seem technical, but they're vital to ensuring a fair trial. They protect everyone's rights by making sure evidence is gathered and presented legally. Without these safeguards, anyone could be at risk of wrongful conviction. For Mangione, this is his chance to challenge the case before it reaches a jury. The process isn't about hiding the truth, it's about making sure justice is done properly. If rules were broken, tainted evidence is excluded. These hearings build public trust in the justice system. The outcome will rest on a solid legal foundation, whatever the verdict. As pretrial hearings wrap up, Judge Caro faces major decisions. He'll rule on whether physical evidence, like the notebook, can be shown to the jury, and whether Mangione's statements to police are admissible. These rulings could dramatically alter the prosecution's case and the defense's strategy. If key evidence is excluded, the prosecution must find new ways to prove motive. If the defense fails to suppress evidence, they'll have to counter it directly in court. Once the rulings are made, both sides will know what tools they have for trial. Jury selection will follow, and the full story will finally be told in court. The judge's decisions set the stage for a legal showdown watched by the entire country. The trial's outcome will hinge on what evidence survives these crucial hearings. The road to a verdict begins here,